Hello everyone, welcome to this class. So in this particular class, we will study about fossils, right? And this video is in reference with almost all the biological competitive exams, but particularly I am, creating this video in reference to UP, PGT and TGT exam, that is which is going to held in 2022. So let us start the discussion directly by understanding that what is fossils. But before I'll directly come to the fossils, you can see that it is 13 July 2022 and it is a 3:19. So this software is showing the time as well. Anyway, so let us start the discussion. Now we need to understand, first of all, there is a word that is called paleontology. So we should be aware that what is the meaning of paleontology, and then we will proceed the discussion. Right, everyone? So it is, paleontology. I think my spelling is right. Okay, so it is paleontology. Well, paleontology means it is a study of fossils. So what is it? It is a study of fossils. It is the study of fossils. Now it is very important to understand actually what fossils are. Sometimes, of course, many of us has confusions regarding fossils. But before I directly come to the fossil definition, let me break the word that is paleontology into two. So we can study paleontology by break it into two words. So one is paleo, or rather paleo, and the second is ontology. The second is ontology. So that is paleontology, right? When we speak basically about the meaning of paleontology, or paleo, so it is something older or ancient. When we are talking about something older or ancient, okay. And when we speak about ontology, so ontology, it is a study of life. So again, that is, we are talking about fossils. So something older and ancient, we are talking about. So it is a study of life. Now, what is exactly a fossil? To understand the definition of fossil, we need to understand, uh, you know, a fossil should be that substance. It has to follow some of the character, or it has to fulfill some of the conditions. But of course, I am not coming to those conditions because that is not from our point of view. I am just directly coming to what it is called as the definition of fossils. So let us start with the definition of fossils. Okay, just give me a minute and we are here. Okay, so we are here. Okay, before I'll write, just take a pause for a minute and then think about it, that what do you know about fossils. So fossils are actually direct or indirect remains of past life. It is important what I'm writing. So fossils are actually direct or indirect remains of past life preserved by natural process, preserved by natural process. Of course, we can't make fossils artificially, so natural process, and should be prehistoric in nature, and should be prehistoric in nature. That is first important thing. Prehistoric in nature. Actually, I'm not very used to this platform. It's the first video I think I'm creating on this platform, so writing may create an issue. Hope you are understanding. Well, now let us look the definition again, what I said. So fossils are direct or indirect remains. Now what do we mean by direct or indirect remain? It would be clear just in a minute. Let's say you got a bone. Let's say you found a bone. So bone is a direct remain. Like suppose you found a soft body part. That is a direct remain. Indirect means, suppose if you found some imprint, or suppose you found some signs or some kind of cast, some kind of mold, that is kind of indirect. So it is just a remain of past life. It is not necessary that remain of organism should be there. No, it is not necessary. It can be like in the form of imprint as well. So fossils are direct or indirect remains of past life preserved by natural process. I should write a process here. Well, it is a natural process and should be prehistoric. Now what is the meaning of prehistoric? This is something which is very important. Make sure if you got a bone, or if it's just of let's say 100-year-old, you can't call it fossil. It is important to understand, we can't call a bone even which is 500-year-old, we can't say. Let's say it is a thousands of year old bone, we can't say it is fossil. Prehistoric mean at least it should be a minimum 10,000 year ago, right? It should be 10,000 year ago at least. So you can only call a substance fossils if it is, at least 10,000 year old ago. So this is something which is very, very important. Now we will talk about what are the conditions in which fossils formed, but let me now come to some of the important discussion about the fossils now. Now everyone, I will restricted myself to that point, those point only which are supposed to be asked in examination. Of course there is a lot of details about fossils, but we are not going to add that. We are restricting ourselves to the discussion which is important. Okay, what we can also say, the definition, in definition we can also use a term, that fossils are preserved remain of hard part of organism which exist a long time ago. So that's a basic definition, but the what I have written, it is a perfect definition. Now we need to know that who is the father of paleontology. So these two are important, that who was the father of, or who is the father of paleontology. So there are two father of the paleontology. If I talk about the one name, I'm sure you have heard about it. So it is Leonard Vinci. The complete name was Leonard D. Vinci, or D. Vinci, or Vinci. That's the complete name. But the father of modern paleontology is someone else. So father of, and I'm sure you have heard about his name as well. Father of modern paleontology. It is, George Cuvier. It is basically G. Cuvier. So George Cuvier. So George Cuvier is the father of modern paleontology. Now the question is that why we studied fossils. So we usually study fossil for many of the reasons. First of all, we want to understand that how was the past life is. Uh, of course, we can determine the age of the fossils. We can determine the age of the strata in which fossils are found. So we can calculate that in a particular geographical era of the Earth, what kind of organism basically existed. I'm sure you know what do I mean by geological time scale, or what do you mean by a geological time scale. I'm sure you are aware. If you're not aware, we'll upload a video again for that. Anyway, let us now start with a law. We have some of the law, so let us start with one of the law in fossil. Then we'll come to know that how fossil formation takes place. So the law is law of superposition. There is a law that is called law of superposition. This is called law of superposition. Okay everyone, so what is exactly a law of superposition? Law of superposition, it states that in the lower strata of geological formation, it was first to be deposited and it is the oldest. That means if we have found a fossil in the lower strata of the earth, so what does it mean? It means that that fossil formed first, you know and that is oldest anyways. And when we study the fossils, and when we do study the fossils of different sedimentary layer of earth crust, we actually can estimate geological period in which they exist. What do I mean? I mean to say, suppose if we found a fossil in a particular layer of earth, so we can calculate the time of that, we can calculate the age of that fossils with the help of a carbon dating. That is the first thing. Second thing, we can also calculate the age of that strata of the layer of earth, when it was formed. So that is how we can determine that particular fossils, or what that kind of organism, when they would probably existed in what geological era. I'm sure you know what is era and what is epoch. If you're not aware, we'll talk about it as well, but for now let me write about the law of superposition. So this is what the law of superposition stated, what I just said to you, that what it stated. Let me explain. That lower strata of geological formation, that lower strata of geological formation was first to be deposited, was first to be deposited was first to be deposited and is the oldest. and is the oldest. That is another thing that we need to understand. Apart from this, you need to understand that when we study the fossils of different sedimentary layer of earth crust, we can estimate the geological period in which they exist. Now I'm writing very few of the important things with which will give you a very important idea about the things. Now, everyone, first of all, we know that fossil formation is very good in sedimentary rocks. We know about it, right? That sedimentary rocks are the richest in fossil. We know that. So, it is a first important point. Before I'll proceed with anything else, let me write it that it can be a question again that sedimentary rocks are the richest in fossils. That sedimentary rocks are richest in fossils. Are richest in fossils. That is the first point that we need to understand. Now, everyone, the early rock, if we observe the early rock, they contain less number of fossils, right? Then the rock of later era means era, I'm sure you know that geological time scale means earth history is divided into certain eons, then era, then periods, and then epoch. So we studied the earth history like that. Anyway, so when we observe the early rock, early rocks means that were existed long time ago, then they have less number of fossils. Now what it exactly suggesting, what exactly it is suggesting, that because we know that life originated in the water, not on the land. So that is why we found the fossils in the water, and usually the fossils are of marine invertebrate. Usually the fossils are of marine invertebrate. So this is important. And the later rock, the rock which formed later, they are richest in fossils. Why? Because then the organisms was was moved to the land. So this is an important point I'm writing about it. Now let's discuss about it. Okay. Okay, everyone. Now I'm dictating some of the few very important thing that will be presented in the form of written in on the screen. So let us now dictate about these things. These are very important from the examination point of view. Okay. So let's start now. Yeah, this is audio recording is start working. Just wait for a minute till it is starting. Okay, everyone. So let us now continue the discussion with writing session. Okay, and let's write some of the very important point that we need to know about the fossil. So let me come back to the slide. Okay. So the early rock contain less number of fossil than the rock of later era. Why it is so? It is because we know that only fossils of simple marine form of invertebrates are in these rocks. It is due to the fact because we know that life originated in sea, of course. So everyone, now we need to understand this now. So of course it is in front of you now written. So some of the words are not that type. So let me write early rock actually. So we have understood this point now that the early rocks contain less number of the fossils because life originated in the water. Now, okay, let us now try to understand the distribution of fossil in the successive strata. Strata means on the different layer of the earth. So everyone, we know that early fossils, they are present in bottom rocks. They were simple actually. Why they were simple? We know that. Again, the life because originated in the water. The life is originated in the water. That is because. And the recent fossil that what we found in the upper layer of rock, they are more complex. Okay, so this is very important to understand for us. Why it is important to understand? It is important to understand that we should be very clear about the fossils and where they are actually forming. So this is, it is important for us to understand. Let me zoom my page. I am sure that you can't see the, the written aspect. So now you can actually easily see the written aspect as well. Right, everyone? Yes, you can see now. So let me come to the next point that is also important. Before I move to the next point, I want to make you aware that if you have not studied geological time scale, then please do study, because I am going to use some of the word with that. Okay, fine. And it is important, examiner may catches you directly on these points. Okay, so everyone, again, rock of Proterozoic era contain few fossils, and Paleozoic era, in the Paleozoic era, the rock of the Paleozoic era, they contain abundant fossils of invertebrates, fishes, and amphibians. It is because we know that in Paleozoic era they were abundant. Similarly, the rock of Mesozoic era, they, that was a time period of great reptiles, and of course, birds and mammals was there. That is why in the Mesozoic era rock we found the fossils of reptiles. It is again the third important aspect. The fourth important aspect that again we should be aware of is that in the Cenozoic era the rocks contain fossil of various mammal, because we know that in the early Cenozoic era the mammals were abundant, and of course it is we are in the Cenozoic era itself. So that is a written discussion. I know some of the spellings are mistake, like in the Paleozoic era it is written, it is era basically, or anyway you may correct it by yourself, but I just speak these words so that you can learn about these things. Okay, now we will understand about certain very important concept that again examiner may ask us. So now I'm going to that. Okay, let's see here. Let us see it here. So can you see? Yes, definitely you can see. So we need to understand about some of the thing. That word, like petrification, we need to know about what is coprolites, we need to know what is impression. So before that, let me check if I'm living anything. So I'm not living, and then in the end we will talk about exactly how fossils form. So let me actually discuss how the fossils form. This is important. Or the different type of fossils, first of all. Okay, let's start with the discussion. Okay, so we can classify, let me come to the draw session. So let me come it here. So everyone, we can classify the fossils according to their nature of life and according to their size of fossils. So fossils, we can classify like that. We can classify fossil first, what is their nature of life, and the second we can classify the fossil as size of the fossil. So if I talk about what is the nature of the fossil, then in the nature of the fossil, a fossil can be a plant fossil. Let's say trunk of the plant may be found. In case of animal, anything can be found, so it can be an animal fossil. I know I'm not able to write properly here. This is because of the board issue. And in the size of the fossil, we are having two. One is microfossil and another is macrofossil. So this is a type of fossils as well what we have. Now, how exactly a fossil form? Let us now try to understand that what are the conditions which is required for the formation of fossils. And my battery is low, it is showing I have not connected it to the charger, so it is now connected now. So now it is important, guys, everyone, we are now talking about what are the conditions that are required for the formation of fossils. So I am again coming to the written part. Okay, so I'm again coming to the written part, and it is important for us to know that how exactly fossils form. Let us now go ahead with the discussion. So can I see this? So I don't have. Okay, so for an organism to convert it into fossil, what are the conditions which are required, right? Okay, the first condition is, the first, let me write it here, the first condition is immediate detachment from the atmosphere content, right? Now let me explain this. First, very very important, this, for an organism has to convert it into the fossils, the organism must show the immediate detachment from the atmosphere contact, because we know that in atmosphere oxygen is present, which is the strongest agent in decomposition, you know for an organism to decompose. So that is a first important thing. So now the question is that how a organism, let me show you the complete slide. Let me just move it to here. Yes, I'm sure you can see now. Okay, so I have written the conditions required for an organism into convert into fossils. So what are the conditions which are required? We are discussing the first condition. We have discussed the first condition is that immediate detachment from the atmosphere contact. Why? Because if the organism remain in the contact with oxygen, then of course chances of decompositions are high. How can immediate detachment occur? This is again very important, so let me now discuss about it. Immediate detachment occur by the following. The first important thing we need to understand, that temporary covering, if our organism acquired a temporary covering, that the first thing, this is very very important. And now the temporary covering can be provided by water column. Let's say this temporary covering can be provided by water column. Let's say organism is buried in the water. Let's say this temporary covering may be provided by sand. This temporary covering may be provided by let's say slit particles or clay. So these are the one of the some important thing. But if the temporary covering is permanent, then the chances of converting of dead organism into fossils are very very high, that is maximum. Now it is important that it is important guys that temporary covering, it is very well maintained in water. So let me write about it, that if I talk about this water covering, if the organism is covered under the water, then this temporary covering is very well maintained within the water. I know you can understand why it is. That is why many fossils are present in the water, marine water. So it is important to understand that it is kind of permanent, it is a water column, temporary covering is well maintained. I'm writing in a very short notes form. It is well maintained, and that is why many fossils are found in marine water. Many fossils are found in marine water. Okay, marine water. This is important. Okay, so that is a first and a very very important. Apart from this, fossil formation is affected by the chemical environment, right? Chemical environment play an important role in formation of fossil, because what kind of chemical environment is, if it suit to the organism, then definitely the it chances of organism to convert into fossils are high, such as the pH is one of the factor, right? And apart from this, there are other factors as well. Okay, now let us now discuss about mode of preservation of fossils. I mean to say how fossils are preserved. So this is important. In short, we will discuss about these things because these are also important to understand, and then we'll talk about some of the very few important things what can be asked in the examinations. So let me now take another page, or I think it can be maintained here only. Let me now go to the upside. Yes, we have a good space here, so let me write about it. Okay, so now fossils can be in following part. Fossils can be, now this is very important, examiner would catches you here. Fossils can be a soft part of an organism. Fossil can be a indirect fossil, and fossil can be a hard part like a bone, teeth, and so. Now everyone, of course I'm talking in reference with the animal, so we need to understand this hard part may be altered with time, may be altered, or this hard part may be unaltered, may be that we can get the unaltered fossils, and alteration can be because of leaching, it can due to leaching. So examiner may catches you here, and it can be due to mineralization, it can be due to mineralization. So these are the few again important thing we need to understand, that fossils can be a soft part of organism, it can be an indirect fossil, means in the form of imprints, in the form of mold, in the form of cast, or the fossil can be hard. In the hard fossils, it can be alter or it can be unalter. Now it is important that it is very difficult to preserve a soft part. Of course, if we left out a soft part, it would be decomposed by bacteria, but these soft part can be well preserved. This is important to understand. It can be well preserved in, let's say, ice. In ice, even today we have the example of let's say mammoth. So I'm sure you know what is mammoth are. So you know mammoth are, they look like elephants, but they were very hairy, although they extinct now. But we got their fossils even today in the Siberian ice area. So in the Siberian there was an ice age, ice age. Actually, in Siberian, ice age was occur in a Paleocene. It was occur in Pleistocene rather, or I should say Pleistocene. It was occur in the Pleistocene in the Siberia. Even today, we got the like kind of a fresh flesh of the mammoth. The Siberian used to fed their dog on these flesh. The flesh even they got today, it was so fresh, because it is under the ice. If we keep dead organism under the ice, it won't decompose. Again, the reason is that because bacterial action is not there. So it is important. So soft part are only preserved in natural refrigeration. This is important. If someone want to prevent or they preserve the natural part, then they can be preserved only in the natural what we call said refrigeration. If I talk about hard part, then if present in the same composition as they are unaltered, if like let's suppose if we got a bone, and if a bone is unaltered in the same composition, that is well and good. So but if it is altered, it can be altered due to the leaching or due to mineralization. So how mineralization occurs? So mineralization means instead of the actual part of the fossil, some kind of chemical they deposited. So that is what exactly. Now everyone, in the end, let us take some of the few words and then finish the topic. These are only important thing what I'm talking about, what can be asked in the examination. Okay, let's now go to some of the things. Of course, I'm not talking very specifically about it. Okay, so what is few of the word we need to understand? One word is petrification. What is actually petrification? Petrification, it is a mode of alteration, but of course I'm not talking about that aspect. But petrification is that, let's suppose, when fossils are formed, when a part of dead organism is decay with the passage of time, but it get replaced by molecule for molecule by inorganic material. Let's suppose our organism is there and the organism get buried. The soft part they decompose and the hard part also decompose. But within the hard part, every molecule of that hard part is replaced by molecule, and then a similar kind of structure what we are getting. So if I talk about the definition of petrification, if examiner would ask you, then it is it is how can we define actually petrification? Let me see. So the well way is that, wait for a minute. Yeah, it is not mentioned. So if I have to define petrification, I think it is not paused now. So if I have to define petrification, how can we define petrification? uh, you know Petrification is basically when structure remains same but chemical composition gets changed. Now let us take a situation, everyone. Let's take a situation that an organism, let's say for example a wood trunk, the example of wood trunk. So what may happen that, let's say if it buried, or so what exactly happen, let me write it here. What exactly happen? The organic matter of that organism, it may be a plant or it may be an animal, it will remove by microbial degradation, and it is replaced by silica or calcium carbonate in such a sophisticated manner that the replacement takes place molecule to molecule and volume to volume to that original structure. And after that, The original structure appear to be unchanged, but their chemical composition change. So this is important. That means our organism, the dead material, the organic material is replaced in such a manner that we can appreciate that what kind of organism that was. So we can at least study the morphology and the internal structure, of course. You know, then that is petrification. That was an important word that examination may ask you. The next word the examiner that would ask us is about, I told you now that fossils also formed by if an organism get buried intact in preservative. So I think I told you that if organism get buried in preservatives such as snows, oil, tar, volcanic ashes, and that's why there is one of the important thing, again examiner may catches you here, is that about renin and amber. No, sorry, not renin, it is an enzyme. So resin and amber. Resin is actually a sticky substance that is, secreted from pine tree. So it is a sticky substance secreted from pine tree. So what exactly happened? Again, it is important to understand that on these sticky substance, let's say fly comes and if a mosquito comes, then it attaches here, and later this resin hardens to form amber. So we got this. That is also important. Last but not least, the second last I should say, one is called coprolites. So what is actually coprolites? Coprolite is basically the word used for the excreta preserved as fossil. If the excreta of an organism preserve a fossil, then what we call it as a coprolite. So excreta preserve as fossil. Preserve as fossil. So this is important. So at least it given in, if we observe the let's say excreta of an organism, so it may give us an identification or identity that what probably the food of that organism was. I'm sure you have heard about the bird fecal matter that is called guano. So they may convert into fossils. So this is important. Last but again not least, the next is called impression. We can also get the impression. Let's say if an organism dead on a soft matter, let's say on a soft clay, if the organism die, let's say this is an organism, but definitely the organic matter decomposes with time. The organic matter decomposes with time, and the organic matter is basically what happened. you know uh, and everyone, let's take a situation. Let's suppose if organism dies on a soft bodied on a soft clay, and with time the body is covered, let's say even with some clay or kind of thing, but the bodies with time decomposes, but the impression remain over there, and with time that strata may transform into rock, and we can get the fossil on the form of rock. So you can google the impressions and you may got the shells of snails, and there are many more examples. So what are the important thing what we should know about fossils for our exams? The definition of fossils, at least you should know. Oh my god, this is not visible to you, so let me go here. Now it would be visible to you. Okay, so this is the complete definition that what we are talking about. Okay, now it is visible. So these all the things that we should be aware of, right? We should know the principle of superposition. We should know the early rock contain less number of fossils and the rock of later era. Why it is so? We need to understand that because the early life developed in the sea, that's why they don't have fossils, and in the later rocks, they are rich in the fossil. The last thing, of course, I'm just repeating, we need to know that rock of Proterozoic era contain few fossil, because Proterozoic era was a very you can see the geological time scale, or if you want, I can have a video for that, of course. In the Paleozoic era, they contain abundant fossil. Again, let me write about this now, or I think I have written. Okay, let me write about it. This is important, right, everyone? So let's now go for a written section here, and let me start with the audio. Okay, I'm writing here. Rock of Proterozoic era contain less fossils. So it don't know how to write Proterozoic, I guess. Let me write by myself only. So this is important. These things are important. That rock of Proterozoic era, they were very few fossils are found here. few fossils. The rock of Paleozoic era contain abundant fossil. I also sometimes forget these, are I have to revise as well. So Proterozoic have few fossils. Paleozoic era has abundant fossil, but these abundant fossils are of, yes, basically, invertebrate fishes and amphibians. So invertebrates, fishes, and amphibians, and in the rock of Mesozoic era. So my screen is visible now. Yeah, the rock of Mesozoic era. Last thing, Mesozoic era. They were having fossils of reptiles, big reptiles basically. I have not taken examples here, but if you really want to study it, you can take the refer from the Google. Apart from this, whatever we have discussed, that is enough, right? And the Cenozoic rocks, they have fossils of various mammals. So rock, in the Cenozoic rock, fossils of mammals are present. Apart from this, you should know who is the father of paleontology and what is paleontology. So I think we have discussed everything. Last thing, that a substance to call be a fossil, at least it should be a 10,000 year old ago. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, everyone, we have done. If you really found this video helpful for the UP PGT, it's the first video I'm just make. I know it is long, and it is not that in that sophisticated manner that I used to draw my irregular neat videos. So let's try to have some other videos in that format. That is the first time I'm using this. No, second time. I have actually recorded one more video in that format. Okay, so let's see you now in the next class with another topic on algae, because there are questions I have already found for UPPGT. Many questions are from algae. So we will take now the algae in the next class. Thank you, everyone.